Hello one and all, and welcome to Wordpower Family Night. I'm your host, Marty Chan. You are in for a treat. We have lined up 7 Alberta storytellers, illustrators, and authors to share heartwarming and funny holiday stories so that we can all, for just a minute, forget about well, you know what I'm talking about. Tonight, let's roll back the clock, turn back the pages of the calendar, and pretend it's 2019, and the only important thing in our lives is making sure our family got the hint to buy us a Nintendo Switch. Forget that you're looking at a screen right now. I want you to imagine that we're in a community league or a school gymnasium. If you look around, you see kids playing with their classmates. You see parents catching up with old friends they haven't seen in months. And maybe even extended relatives or family have come to help celebrate the holidays and borrow money from their big brother. We're all waiting for the performers to take the stage and hoping that they'll tell us some wonderful stories that will remind us of a time when we could all be together in person. And we're hoping that this evening will remind us that what we're doing now is helping to get us all back to that moment when we could actually be in a live audience together and sharing stories. Now, I have worked with all 7 presenters this evening, and I have to say every single one of them has this incredible skill of noticing the smallest details in life and turning them into stories. That's the thing about creative people. They can notice the most insignificant things and turn them into stories we'll never forget. In fact, let me show you what I mean. Like right over here, these clippings are often collected when your family member does something amazing. Maybe your daughter scores like a number of goals in soccer and she gets written up in the local newspaper. So you cut out the clipping and you keep it as a memory of the important milestones in your family's life. Every family does this. They collect these clippings. Now, here's the thing. If the clipping is about somebody else's family, well, then it's just yesterday's news. But the thing about creative people, whether they be storytellers, illustrators, or authors, they collect all those details. Doesn't matter if they are connected to the story or not. They bring them all together. And what they do is they sift through all these details and all these stories, and they actually piece them together in the library of their mind. And once they've got them all together, what they start to do is they start to piece things together. And they use their imagination to try to glue together all those bits and pieces that we might otherwise just toss into the garbage. And when they bring all these elements together with just one simple, they turn them into stories that we all want to read. That's what we're going to do tonight, is we're going to create a little bit of story magic for you. Now, I might have a trick or two up my sleeve, but you're going to enjoy the stories you're about to hear. Now, I'd like to move you all to the virtual stage. Nope, you can stay on the couch. I'm the one who's going to go to the virtual stage. All right, join me over here.
Hello, I'm thrilled to be here with you tonight for this fantastic event celebrating literacy. My name is Jessica Yarnell, and I am a Community Investment Advisor at Cenovus Energy. And I'm joining you virtually from the comfort of my youngest daughter's bedroom, surrounded by some of our favorite books. At Cenovus, we know that it is important to give back, especially in the locations that are closest to our operations. We aim to invest in organizations and initiatives that increase the quality of life for people where we live and work, and focus our efforts into 2 main areas: giving youth a chance and strong families safe and sustainable communities. We look for partners who go the extra mile to tackle challenging issues and change the lives of individuals in our communities. Young Alberta Book Society is one of those organizations whose programming has the ability to inspire and enrich the lives of so many young people across our province. We know the importance that literacy has on so many aspects of development, and it's for this reason that we are thrilled to partner with them. Enjoy your evening and never stop exploring through the pages of a good book.
Thank you for those kind words, Jessica. And thank you to Cenovus Energy for supporting tonight's family night, as well as your ongoing support of the Wordpower tour. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with what Wordpower is, I'm going to give you a little bit of background. There's a provincial organization called the Young Alberta Book Society, and they have a mandate or a mission to inspire a love of reading in kids in Alberta. And they do it in a unique way. What they do is they grant access to literary artists like storytellers, illustrators, authors, poets, playwrights. They get those presenters into schools so that the literary artists can actually talk about their work, their creative process, and inspire kids to want to read and maybe even write their own stories. Now, in 2012, the Young Alberta Book Society teamed up with Cenovus Energy to expand their programming and reach as many communities in Alberta as possible. And over the years, they've reached hundreds of communities and inspired thousands of kids to become lifelong readers. Now, 2020 rolled around and we had to do things slightly differently. We went with online virtual visits. And still, we were able to reach out to 63 communities, from the Elizabeth Métis settlement to Elmworth, from Fort Chipewyan down to Eagle Butte. And there were 15 presenters in total that did virtual visits this year. And we're going to get a sample of what they did in the school. 7 of those presenters have agreed to join us tonight and share with us what they did in schools. So we're going to kick things off with our first presenter, Kathy Jessup. Kathy is an Edmonton-based storyteller who has told both original stories and world folktales in schools, libraries, concerts, and festivals across Canada and internationally. In 2017, she created a touring production called the Alaska Highway Road Show, which was performed in Edmonton, Whitehorse, and Ottawa. Tonight, Kathy is going to kick things off with a winter-themed story, her adaptation of an Oscar Wilde short story, The Selfish Giant. So wherever you are, settle in. If you're on your couch, make sure you got some popcorn. If you don't have popcorn with you, get somebody to make popcorn for you. Don't miss a show, miss a minute of the show. Settle in and get ready for the telling of The Selfish Giant by Kathy Jessup.
The children loved to play in the Giant's garden every day after school. It was a beautiful place. It was large, with pathways where they could run and play tag and hide and go seek. And if they were hot, they could splash in the fountain that spurted water. There were trees and shrubs and flowers, and birds flew overhead. Oh, it was just paradise to them. Now, the garden was actually part of the grounds of a castle that belonged to a giant. But he had gone away several years before to visit his friend, another giant on the other side of the mountain, and he hadn't yet returned. And so the kids, with short memories and time passing, they began to view the garden as their own private playground. Well, one day, the giant did return, and he was not happy to find the children playing in his garden. He yelled at them and he said, "This is my private property. You are trespassing. You have to get out and never come back." Well, the children tried to explain that they didn't mean any harm, but the giant wouldn't listen. He ordered them out. And then when they were gone, he built a huge, high stone wall all around the garden with big, sturdy metal gates and a heavy lock. And then he put a sign up that said, "No trespassing or else." Well, the children were so sad because they really didn't have any other place to play. There was no other park or playground around. And so after school, they found themselves coming back to the giant's garden. But this time, they just walked around the outside of it, around and around, talking about all the fun they'd once had and all their happy memories. Sometimes they would come to the gate and they would rattle the bars and call to the giant, "Please let us in." But he never answered. And so they made up a nickname for him. They called him the Selfish Giant. Months passed and spring came to the land. The sun was so warm and the birds came back and the trees started to bud out and the grass was growing. But spring did not come to the giant's garden. The birds had poked their heads in, but without seeing any children, why bother staying? And the trees forgot to bloom. And the flowers, they poked their head up out of the snow, had a look around, and went right back down to sleep. And so winter stayed in the giant's garden. Now, the only ones that were happy about this situation were Snow and Frost. They said, "If spring doesn't come to the garden, we can stay here all year long." And so Snow snowed more and more, big mounds and drifts in the garden. And Frost climbed up all the trees, leaving a coating as hard as rock. And then their friend the North Wind came, blowing its icy breath over every crack in the garden. And along came hail, and hail rained for days on the roof of the castle, breaking some of the tiles in the windows. And soon that garden was just one big block of ice. Well, the giant wondered why spring hadn't come, but it didn't, and neither did summer. And when autumn came, she brought fruit to all the trees in the countryside, but not to those trees in the giant's garden. "Why should I?" she said. "He's so selfish. He doesn't deserve it." And so it remained winter. One morning, the giant was laying in his bed, and he heard the sound of beautiful music. And he thought, that must be the king's musicians coming down the street. But in fact, that music was a bird singing, only it had been so long since the giant had heard a bird, he forgot what it sounded like. And then the giant began to smell a scent. Oh, it was so sweet. Curious, he jumped out of bed and he ran to the window and looked out. And what he saw astounded him. Spring had come to his garden. Now, here's what had happened. The children had been walking around that stone wall, and they found a spot where some of the stones were kind of loose and wiggly. And they worked away at it until eventually they could push, and those rocks came right through to the other side, leaving a hole just big enough that a child might be able to sneak in. And so they did. All of them into the giant's garden. They were so excited they forgot his rules. They raced over to the trees and began to climb up into them. They sat in the branches and let their legs dangle, and they called back and forth to one another, laughing. Oh, they were having so much fun. And that is what the giant saw when he looked out his window. And then he realized something. He had a flash of love and joy that just washed over his heart, and it began to melt. Because he realized that as he saw those children in that tree, there was a transformation happening. The snow and the ice and the frost were melting away. The sun was out. Birds were singing gloriously in the air. Flowers were popping everywhere, and the trees were budding out. It was spring. And the giant realized it was the children. He had to talk to them. And so he rushed out of the castle into the garden. And as soon as the children saw him coming, they ran and hid behind the trees. They were scared, and they wouldn't come out when he called. And then the giant noticed something. In the back corner of his garden, there was one tree where it was still winter, covered in frost and ice, big snowbanks all around the bottom. And there was a little boy standing there crying. He had been trying to climb up in the tree like the big kids did, but he was so small, he just kept slipping and sliding into the snow. And he was so upset. Well, the giant walked over to him. And the little boy had so many tears in his eyes, he couldn't see that the giant was coming. And the giant bent down and he talked tenderly to the boy. And then he picked him up and lifted him up into the branch of that tree. And when the boy settled in, he looked around And the transformation was happening to this tree too. The snow and ice were melting, flowers were popping out. Birds, 2 of them came and nested right beside him and sang to him. He was so delighted, he threw his head back and laughed. And then he flung his arms around the giant's neck and gave him a big hug. And the giant's heart melted completely. And then the other kids, well, they got a little bit braver. They came out of their hiding places and they began to talk to the giant and apologize. They were so sorry they shouldn't have come into the garden and they just didn't. And the giant said, "No, don't apologize. It is me. I should apologize to you. I was wrong to ban you from my garden and I'm very sorry. And you know what? I am going to knock down that stone wall. And you can come back to this garden as often as you want and you play as long as you want. This garden belongs to you." Well, the children cheered. And you know, a few days later, when the townsfolk were walking down the road, and they would look over and see the garden with all the children playing in it, and the giant bent over, toiling away, working so hard to have improvements, make the garden even more beautiful for the children. Those townsfolk would look at each other and smile and say, "Isn't he a kind man? Aren't we lucky to have him for a neighbor?" And the children agreed. In fact, they had a new name for the giant. They called him the Friendly Giant. And so he was for the rest of his days.
Well, thank you, Kathy, for that wonderful story and for letting us know that Oscar Wilde was the one who created the Friendly Giant. Look up, look way, way up. I think we should look at some of the other Oscar Wilde stories to see what other Canadian children icons he created. Maybe Mr. Dressup. Well, the Wiggles, are they Canadian? Teletubbies. No, I think Teletubbies is more sort of a Stephen King kind of thing. Okay. Well, I agree with David. She is a great storyteller. And I see that Ange Cornell is here from Rimby Elementary, where I visited this afternoon with a virtual visit. So hi, Ange. Hope you're doing well. Okay, so that was a great story to kick things off. Now, before I introduce our next presenter, I do want to talk about the importance of word power. I know earlier I talked about the stats in terms of what it could do, but let me put a personal touch to it. Now, I'm one of the presenters who did virtual visits this year, and if anybody has had to do virtual visits over the last few months, you know how difficult it can be. You know, technology kind of cuts out. Maybe a camera goes dark or a mic starts to fade in and out in the middle of the session. And so for somebody who's doing sessions in schools, it's particularly difficult because we kind of rely on the audience reaction to sort of gauge what we're doing, if we have to pick up the pace or slow things down or bring the energy up or bring it down. So if we don't have that feedback, it's really hard to know if we're connecting with the students or not. And after a few presentations at the beginning of the tour, I started thinking, oh, I don't know, I can barely see the kids. And when I can see the kids, they have masks over their faces. So I don't know if I'm making a difference. Well, a couple of days ago, something happened that gave me some hope. I did a presentation at a school, and there were 2 classes that were Zooming in. They were in their separate classrooms. But unfortunately, one boy from one of the classrooms, he came into contact with somebody who tested positive for COVID. He didn't have it, but he had to, go into self-isolation. And he was going to Zoom in from his home. And as soon as he logged on, I could tell he was not a happy camper. He was not pleased. I think he wanted to be in school with his friends. I mean, he was feeling perfectly fine. And why did he have to stay at home? I made it my mission to try to win over this kid. Oh, thanks, Linda. I appreciate that. Okay. So I started doing my presentations, and if you've seen me do presentations, you know I do a combination of personal stories and humor. And so I started telling stories, and I would try to make the kids laugh. And as I was going along, I kept sort of out of the corner of my eye, I'd watch the screen. And this boy, his frown turned into just a slight smile. Then his eyes got wide. I was telling more and more stories. And then when I got to a funny part of the story, he burst out laughing. Now, his mic was off, so I couldn't hear him laugh, but I knew he was laughing because he's laughing so hard that his mouth actually opened so wide, I thought he was going to swallow the camera. Now, he was the only one that was at the computer, so he started typing in the chat, and he typed about, like, LOL, I love this story, who is this guy, I want to read his books. It was that point that I realized that even a virtual visit can make a difference in a kid's life. And yet think about, there's 15 presenters who are doing presentations that are getting kids excited about reading. And you think about the number of years that presenters have done this, and you get a really good sense of how important word power is. Now, our next presenter is no stranger to inspiring kids to read. She's been doing it a lot over her years of her career, and especially with kids who like hockey. Lorna Schultz Nicholson has written children's pictures books. She has written middle grade fiction, young adult novels, and she's written nonfiction about hockey. She's written about such elite athletes as Haley Wickenheiser and Connor McDavid. She's also worked in television and radio as a reporter and a host. She's been an actor in theater and done murder mysteries. And she's even been a fitness trainer and a rowing coach. Tonight, Lorna is going to treat us to a reading from her picture book, Puckster's Christmas Hockey Tournament. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here is Lorna Schultz Nicholson.
Colored lights sparkled against the night sky. Puckster slung his hockey bag over his shoulder and he stared at them. This time of year was so magical. He and his pals had just finished their last practice on the outdoor ice. Just 3 more sleeps before Christmas. I can't wait until Christmas. Well, Charlie, he just bounced up and down. This year we're all going to be together. Yeah, and all the best at the best hockey tournament ever, said Manny, his antlers wiggling. I've never stayed in a hotel room, said Rolly. It will be fun, but different to be away from home. Sarah stared up at the night stars. Christmas is magical everywhere in the world, said Francois. He paused. Do you think Santa will come to our hotel room? He has to, squeaked Charlie. That's his job. Well, this year was going to be different. Puckster and his pals were attending the World Junior Hockey Championship. And because he was the stick boy, Puckster was leaving early on the big bus. All of his pals and the team's families were coming the next day for Christmas morning. Well, Puckster, he high-fived all his friends. I can't wait to give you your gifts. Charlie jumped up and down. What did you get me? He's not supposed to tell, Manny laughed. Christmas is about surprises. Well, after a long bus ride, Puckster and the players arrived at the arena. Big, fluffy snowflakes landed on Puckster's head as he carried the sticks to the dressing room. The boys practiced for 2 hours. After the practice, when everything was put away, Puckster left the arena to go to his hotel room. Bigger snowflakes fell from the sky, and the snow was now knee-deep on the ground. Well, the next morning, Puckster woke up in a strange hotel room. He jumped up and he pulled back the curtains. The snow was as high as his window, and it was still falling. Well, at breakfast, the players and coaches were eating scrambled eggs and oatmeal. But no one was talking. They all looked really sad. What's wrong? Puckster asked. One of the boys pointed to the television where a reporter was giving the weather report. All the highways are closed because of the snow. Oh no! Puckster covered his face with his paws. Our parents and friends won't be here for Christmas. Well, that night was Christmas Eve, and Puckster and the players gathered for a festive dinner. Everyone was quiet. Christmas music played in the background. A few of the boys tried to have fun and be jolly, but it was so hard. When Puckster went to bed that night, he stared out his window at all the hotel's Christmas lights. Somehow, they didn't look so magical here. It just wasn't Christmas without his family and friends. Tears fell from his eyes and landed on his fur. Well, the next morning was Christmas, and Puckster jumped out of bed. And he quickly looked around his room. Had Santa come? He searched under his bed and on the top of his television and in the closet for his presents. There were none. Then he had an idea. Puckster ran to the lobby. Yes, there were presents under the Christmas hotel lobby tree. He shook a few that were there for him. But they weren't. They were fake. Just empty boxes wrapped in pretty paper. Santa must have been able to find Puckster so far from home he couldn't find him. Well, on the bus to the arena, all the players were quiet. Some listened to music and others read, but no one said anything about Santa not coming. Puckster had to do something. When the boys were practicing, he snuck away. He found some white paper towels and he shredded them to make a big white beard. Then he went to the lost and found, and he searched through the plastic bin, and he found a pair of glasses and a big pillow. He put the glasses on, and he shoved the pillow under his shirt. He dug deeper into the bin, and he yanked out a big black belt and some black boots. Well, when the boys came off the ice, dripping with sweat, Puckster was waiting. Ho, 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 he said, rubbing his tummy. The boys laughed. Puckster hung his head. His plan hadn't worked. The team captain patted Puckster's shoulder. Thanks for trying, he said, but it's okay. We're here to play hockey. All we want for Christmas is a gold medal. Well, after the practice, Puckster went outside. And this time the snow was almost waist deep. As Puckster and the team trudged across the parking lot, a strange sound drifted through the quiet night air. Puckster stopped walking. The noise got louder and louder. Ring, ring, bells. It sounded like Christmas bells and people singing Christmas songs. Puckster stared down the road, and through the snow, he saw a huge sleigh pulled by reindeer. A man with a white beard and a red outfit and a big jolly belly sat in the front seat. It's Santa! Puckster clapped his paws. It is Santa, all the boys exclaimed. Well, Santa's sleigh was pulling another sleigh, and this one was even bigger. It slid easily across the snow, even though it was full of people. Puckster could see Charlie jumping up and down and Manny's antlers moving. All the parents waved and yelled, "Merry Christmas!" "Ho, ho, ho," said Santa in his sleigh. As the sleigh screeched to a halt, he stood and he pulled out a long piece of paper. "Every boy on this team wrote me a letter asking for a gold medal for Christmas." He winked at all the players. "You will have to work hard for that Christmas gift." "Don't worry, Santa," they all replied. "We will." At the gold medal game, Santa sat in the stands with all the other fans. He clapped and he cheered and he laughed big belly laughs, especially when Puckster danced. And when the buzzer sounded and Canada had won, Puckster high-fived Santa. The boys' Christmas wishes had all come true, and their friends and family were there to see them receive their gold medals. It really was the best Christmas ever. And in the back of these books are some of Puckster's tips. And Puckster's tips for this story were: always believe that good things will happen. Never give up on a goal or dream. And family and friends are important in your life.
Oh, thank you, Lorna. What a sweet and actually timely story, considering we're probably hoping that Santa will give a gold medal to the Canadian team in the World Juniors. They're actually playing in Edmonton. Well, they're not playing in Edmonton. They're playing in the bubble in Edmonton, which, oh, wait a minute. That gives me an idea. Hey, Lorna, I have an idea for your next Puckster book. It's a sequel, okay? Think about this. Puckster steps out of the bubble. So what will happen is he's like trying to find the locker room. He takes the wrong turn, goes out a door, and winds up stepping outside of Roger's place. And now he's outside of the bubble, and he's lost downtown trying to find a way to get back into Roger's place. And then the next thing you know is he winds up at City Hall, and he goes in there, and he meets the mayor of Edmonton, Don Iveson. And since Don Iveson is retiring as the mayor, the Puckster and Don Iveson form a detective duo, and they go solve mysteries in Edmonton. I think I might have went off the rails a little bit. Okay, sorry about that. So that's sort of like what the creative process is like for writers. You just sort of take an idea and you run with it. And I kind of ran with it a little too far. So I apologize. For that. Now, here's the thing. I know the creative process when it comes to writers, but I'm always fascinated about the creative process for other artists, especially illustrators. Because I always see how they can take like simple shapes and lines and somehow turn them into these amazing characters, incredible settings, these worlds and these stories. And I always wonder how on earth can they pull that off. Well, our next presenter is an incredible illustrator. Jerry Rasmussen has been drawing the internationally syndicated comic Betty since 1991. It is in newspapers and magazines around the world. For children, he's also illustrated the picture books Crazy About Hockey, Crazy About Basketball, and Crazy About Soccer. Tonight, we're going to get some insight into his creative process. Unfortunately, Jerry had another commitment tonight, so he couldn't actually be with me, or virtually be with me. So earlier in the week, I sat down with Jerry and did an interview about his creative process while he was drawing. And I'm going to share the interview with you right now. So here's Jerry Rasmussen in conversation with me. Good to see you. How are you keeping?
Thank you so much for having me. I love this because this time of year is my favorite. It's my favorite time of year. You can tell by the hat I wear. Like, this isn't just for this. This is how I dress around the house, you know.
Year round? Is it year round?
No, not year round. I'm not crazy. Okay. This is just for the holidays, right?
Just for the holidays. And
just for the holidays.
Do you have anything special planned this pandemic Christmas?
Yeah. Because I love this time of year so much, I wanted to draw like a wintry festive scene for everybody. And I've always loved snowmen or snow persons or snow people or however you refer to them. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to just show you how I would draw a scene with four snowmen in it, or four snow. What do you call them? Snow persons?
Snow units.
Snow units. That's the one. Snow units. Okay, I'm gonna draw. So I'm gonna first. I'm gonna set the scene by just creating the atmosphere in the background that I wanted. Okay.
All right, then I'm gonna let you to it. All right.
Okay, Marty. All right. So what I'd like to do is give you the feel that we're up kind of in the mountains. There's some trees in the background.
So do you always find like you have to set the scene before you draw the characters in your stories?
Yeah, because you have to kind of get in the mood, right? It's all a part about entering into another space, brain-wise, mind-wise. And so up here, we've got like just a hill that's got a lot of snow on it.
Ooh, it's very Julie Andrews, right? Sound of music, I kind of feel like.
Maybe even a few mountains in the background over here. Just for a bit of atmosphere.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
Isn't that festive? It's like, it makes you want to just kind of go, hey, let's go to the mountains. Okay, so now I'm going to draw, I'm going to start to draw some snowmen, but I'll show you as I start some of the problems I run into as I'm constructing these little characters. I always start with simple shapes. So I'm drawing two circles, one on top of each other, and I'm just trying to figure out where my snowman or snow person is going to be. And then I'm going to figure out where the other one is, because I like to sketch everything out before I start finishing things.
Okay. So you like a rough outline of what you're planning.
Yeah. And one of my problems is that as I'm doing this, I set out an idea. I'm going to draw these 4 snowmen or snow creatures. What was that thing? Snow units.
Snow units.
So I've got my 4 snow units here. I'm going to adopt that phrase, 4 snow units. And so now this is where I'm going to be. And from here on in, it's kind of, let's not get sidetracked. Let's stick to the task. So I'm going to start with a snowman hat, snow unit hat.
Okay. Oh, so now you're building in the details.
Yeah. Now I'm going to put the details in. It's got a carrot, of course, for a nose. It's got one lump of coal, another lump of coal, big snow unit smile.
Ooh, I love that smile.
Pretty nice, eh?
Oh, that's gorgeous.
And just below that snow chin, that snow unit chin.
Oh, always has to have a scarf. Always has to have a scarf.
Yeah. I'm got my red, gonna festive it up here.
Now I notice you color as you go along. So is that just part of the process?
Well, it just feels like I'm making it more solid, making it feel like, hey, maybe this looks a little more finished. Don't always do it that way.
Oh, okay.
But now I've got one snow unit. Now I'm going to draw the other one. So now I'm going to try to get them all the same without getting sidetracked.
Okay.
So
well, that scarf makes me think about holiday shopping, and I still have to go pick up things for my wife and for my parents. Have you done your holiday shopping yet?
This is kind of getting me off topic, Marty, because now I'm starting to think of holiday shopping.
Well, it's a busy time of year, right? To go out.
Holiday shopping, even though I love this time of year, it's kind of stressful. So it's making me think,
Yeah, I can picture being stressed.
So I'm getting kind of stressed out, which is not helping the sidetracking problem I have.
Oh, that snow unit really needs a massage, I think.
I think so.
Super stressed.
Might need a massage from the snow unit's hubby.
So I take it when you go holiday shopping, it's a little stressful.
Yeah, you know what I prefer during this time of year is to stay at home, wear my Christmas Santa hat.
Oh, yeah.
Pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely need to stay home and relax, and certainly with Santa. I mean, Santa is like the ultimate one that sort of calms us all down, or ramps us up, depending on like whether you're waiting for gifts or not.
So okay, you got me sidetracked with the shopping.
Oh, sorry, Jerry.
You're making me think of Santa.
Well, it's just that you've got that festive Santa cap. You just, you kind of feel like
that's now going to replace our little normal snowman or snow unit.
Oh, it looks a little smaller. Like, I like that. But is it a younger Santa? Is it like?
Well, just it could go that way. Let's just see what happens here.
So when you're drawing, like things can sort of pop into your brain and take you down different paths. Like call them distractions.
Absolutely.
Call them inspiration. Look at that. It looks like, you know what that looks like to me? Looks like a Santa baby.
That's probably what Santa looked like when he was little, although he looks like he kind of got nicer as he got older.
Well, like when we're trying to do nice things, sometimes we're making up for the bad things that we did when we were kids.
That's right. Maybe Santa was really a nasty little kid. And so he spent the rest of his life just trying to make up for it.
Santa was a bully. Santa was a bully who took other kids' toys away, and now he's trying to give them back.
Right. Yeah, if you're looking for a new story idea there, Marty, even though everybody always kind of probably says that to you. So there's our Santa baby.
Oh, I love that one.
Okay, and now I'm going to try to get back on track, so don't veer me off, okay?
Okay, snow unit.
A snow unit, so I'm going to start with the carrot on this one.
Oh, wow.
It's got a little too big.
Kind of looks like a beak, though.
I know. Okay, well, so let's throw in another carrot.
Double carrot. No, now it really looks like a
double carrot Santa unit, or no, snow unit.
Could be a duck, snow duck.
It's got teeth. Ducks usually don't have teeth. Only really weird birds have teeth.
Oh, weird bird. I think that is what it is. Well, look at that. It's half Roadrunner, half Sonic the Hedgehog.
And he's got a pot gut from maybe eating a little too much during the old festive season.
The holidays. He's the bird that ate the Christmas turkey.
Oh, gee. Yeah. You could almost see it like kind of just the dotted outline of it here.
And if I were writing this story, that was the pet that belonged to Santa Baby that turned him evil.
That was Santa Baby's pet, yeah. And this weird bird wasn't a good influence on young Santa Baby. Might have been part of the reason why he was a little bully baby.
Yeah.
And is making up to this day.
And that's why his mom was so stressed. She had to go shopping to calm down because of Santa Baby.
In a way, we're telling the story of Santa Baby.
It's an origin story.
And this snow unit here was just, as snow units usually do, just kind of standing there innocently watching all the mayhem.
And so I'm just going to remind everybody, this is what Jerry was going to draw for us before I might have distracted him. Jerry was going to draw a festive winter scene. Now take a look at that festive winter scene, everybody. I think it's pretty festive. It does say winter. You've got snow units. You've got the mountains in the background. I mean, you got Santa Baby. Like how more festive can we get than something like this? I think it's amazing. So Jerry, thank you so much for taking the time and drawing us your festive winter scene. It's incredible to see what you could do just on the fly. And I apologize for the distractions, but I think what you came up with is pretty incredible.
Well, Marty, talking about distractions, sometimes they can make something better. I mean, now that I look at this, it's like if I just had a picture of 4 well-drawn snow units, I wouldn't have been all that exciting. But just, the fact that we went sideways kind of made this, I think.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jerry. Have a safe and happy holiday, and thank you for being part of Winter Word Power.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, and have a safe, happy holiday, too.
There we go. My interview with Jerry Rasmussen, an incredible illustrator. Truly remarkable what he did. He deserves a round of applause, or round of virtual applause. Let's try this out. There you go, Jerry. Take your bow. Take your virtual bow. Now, I have to say, that was incredible. Even with the sidetrack where I kind of distracted him, he still came up with a really amazing scene with all those drawings. And you know, I'm going to be honest with you, the original idea with snow units, I think what he did after the distraction was way better. I mean, seriously, who really wants to see snow units anymore? I mean, that's Frozen is so like yesterday. I would not want to see a snow unit anymore. I mean, they're no longer the stars of the show, right? Okay, so now let's get on to, I did say I had a trick or two up my sleeve, and I have here something that I can, oh, you know what? Let's hold on to this one for a second. Let's go for some story magic first. Trust me, I'll do a little magic trick after our next presenter, but you're going to be in for a treat with our next guest, Gail Devos. She is a storyteller, an educator, a librarian. For 2 decades, she has been actively promoting the oral tradition in Alberta literature. She has told stories at the Edmonton Folk Festival, schools, libraries, CBC Radio, and abroad. She even teaches storytelling along with Canadian children's literature at the University of Alberta. And tonight, I believe she's going to treat us to a winter story. Gail, if you can hear me, what do you got for us?
Well, I thought I'd tell you a story about an old man and his son, Old Frost and Young Frost. And both of them would go around and they would touch the trees and bring out the frost, and they would touch people's faces and make them cold, and they would have a wonderful time. And eventually, Old Frost got older and Young Frost got bolder. And he decided that he was much cleverer than his father. And not only that, he was stronger. And he would go out and he would tell them, show him just how clever he was and how strong he was. And so he went out looking for a challenge. And he found a rich man. Now, the rich man was inside of a carriage. And the carriage was drawn by a sleek horse. There was a carriage driver on the top. And the rich man was inside, and he had a fur hat, a fur coat, and a fur around his legs. And he was quite warm inside his carriage. But Frost, Young Frost, he had a way of finding a way through a crack. And he went in and he pinched the nose, and the man sort of moved and pinched the cheek, and he put his hat further down and his neck and brought the collar up, and he kept pinching his arms and his legs, and then he went down into his feet, and oh, that's so cold, my feet are so cold. Driver, go faster, we need to get home, I'm freezing. And Young Frost, well, he was laughing so hard, he just kept after the man, plaguing him with all the little bites, and soon the man couldn't even say anything. His words were frozen as they came out of his mouth. When they got to the old man's house, or the rich man's house, they helped him out of the carriage. He couldn't even move anymore. He was so cold. They put him in the house and warmed him up. And Young Frost, well, he was so excited. My father will see just how clever I am. He will have to agree that I am stronger and cleverer than he. But when he arrived home, Old Frost was smiling. Didn't you see what I did? Oh, I saw what you did, but that was not much of a challenge. Really? No. If you want to see if you can be smarter and more powerful than I am, I want you to check out that man. Young Frost looked at the man that his father was pointing at. It was a young peasant. He was wearing a threadbare coat and in an old rickety cart, and had a really scrawny horse pulling it, and he was going on his way to the woods. That man? Yes. See if you can do that man. All right. So Young Frost followed the young man into the woods, and as he went, he started nipping at his arms and his legs, and the man just sort of got a little warmer. And when Young Frost got to his feet, the young man got off the cart and started running with the horse. Kept on going, kept on warming up. And when he got into the forest, he got his axe and he started chopping some trees. He chopped some birch and he chopped some spruce, and he kept chopping and trimming and chopping and trimming. And young Frost kept nipping at him and kept nipping at him and kept nipping at him. And the more he nipped at him, the harder and faster the peasant worked. He started chopping and chopping and chopping, and young Frost was working so hard, he was totally exhausted. And the young man, the peasant, well, he was so warm, he started undoing his coat. He took off his mittens and just kept on working and just ignoring the frost. Young Frost was so tired. What could he do? And then he looked at the mittens and he thought, I know, I will climb in those mittens and I will freeze them solid. They will be solid. And when the man comes to put them on, he won't be able to, and I can freeze his hands. It's perfect. And so young Frost went into the mittens and he was really happy. When the peasants finished loading the cart and was ready to go home, he looked around for his mittens and realized where they were, and he went to get them, and they were frozen solid. They were stiff. There was no way he could even get them up. So he took his axe, the blunt side, and started hitting the mittens. And every time he hit the mittens, old young Frost kept, ow, 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 don't, ow, 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 ow. I kept moving and screaming, but the peasant couldn't hear him. He just kept beating and beating the mittens until they were pliable and supple and ready to put on. And he put them on and he got in the cart and off he went home, and he was really happy. Young Frost was not happy. That was a very long, tired journey back to his father. Oh, I'm so tired. Oh, I hurt. Why are you groaning? Oh, Father, didn't you see what happened? I got beat. And his father laughed and laughed and laughed. He said, young Frost, you're not ready to take over from me. What you need to know and what you need to learn is that it's easy to fool a rich man, but a hardworking peasant, that's much harder to do. Don't you forget it. And that's the story of Old Frost and Young Frost.
Oh, wow. That is a cool story. Thank you so much for that, Gail. That is incredible. I'm going to make sure I double check my gloves before I go out and shovel snow, which I think I have to do today because it snowed a little bit in Edmonton. So that was Gail Devos, an incredible storyteller. She does some amazing work over the years. So please check out her website and see what else she's up to. All right. Right. What's next? I think I promised that I'd do something with this. Okay. So this is a magic trick combined with a writing lesson. Okay. Some of you may recognize what this is. It's a Rubik's Cube, and it's going to help me demonstrate the importance of writing. Now, this was first invented in 1974 by a fellow named Erno Rubik, right? There are 6 sides, 6 solid colors on each side, 9 blocks within each one. Now, Erno Rubik, he invented this to show his students. He was teaching architecture. He was teaching his students how to design buildings with 3D spaces in mind. And when he invented this thing, he did what we all do when we have a solved Rubik's Cube in our hand. He said, let's play with it, right? So he started to scramble up the Rubik's Cube, right? He mixed up the cube. And then when he had the cube nice and mixed up, he did what we all do when we see a mixed up cube. He was like, how hard can it be to solve this thing? It can't be that hard. So the inventor of the Rubik's Cube tried to solve his own invention. But Erno Rubik, the inventor of the Rubik's Cube, couldn't solve his own invention. It took him an entire month to put all the sides back to solid colors. Now, when I was a kid, and say goodbye, Ange, thanks for popping in. Now, when I was a kid, I got my hands on a Rubik's Cube, and I solved it in 2 minutes. No, seriously, I did. You want to know how I did it? I peeled off the stickers, and I put them in the right spots. Now, they say there's over 43 quintillion combinations for a Rubik's Cube. 43 quintillion patterns. and only one of them has the color solid on all 6 sides. That's a lot. Same thing with writing. You have millions of ideas bouncing around in your brain, and you're trying to figure out how to take those ideas and organize them into some kind of story that makes sense, something that fits, something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Well, the secret to organizing a story is also the trick to solving a Rubik's Cube. Instead of focusing on all the patterns, all the ideas, just start with one thing and build on that. Now, some writers, they'll write an opening sentence and they'll build their story on the back of that opening sentence. Other writers will pick a setting, a place, and they'll create a whole world where the story can happen. Me, I like to focus on the main character. All right, so take a look at this cube right now. There's one red square in the middle of this cube. That one red square in the middle of the front of this cube, that red square represents the main character of my story. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build everything around the main character. I might start thinking about, maybe I need some other characters in the story. So what I'll do is I'll start to work on it and build maybe more characters, create more characters in the story. And that gives me 2 cubes or 2 squares now on the cube. And then once I've got the characters in place, I might start thinking about things like setting, like where can the story happen, right? So I'll start thinking about setting, and that will give me a little bit more of a shape to the story. And once I've got that shaped, I might start thinking about the middle of the story where you create the conflict, where all the trouble happens, right? So I'll start thinking about what kind of conflict can I create for the main character, and that will give me even more of a shape to the story until finally everything comes together just like this cube. Now, it takes a long time to solve a Rubik's Cube. It takes a long time to organize a story, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. So at a certain point, you can have your story ideas as jumbled up as this Rubik's Cube, right? But if you know what you're doing, all you have to do is apply your skills, and the next thing you know, everything comes together just like this cube. So always remember, start with one thing and build on it. Now, our next guest could probably solve this Rubik's Cube without resorting to the magic that I did. Joan Marie Glatt is an internationally acclaimed author with 20 books written and published. Amazingly, 7 of those titles were published in the same year, 2017. She writes nonfiction science books for kids, and so she's got a very keen mind, and she's an early starter. Her claim to fame is that she got her first paid writing job when she was 12 years old. But then I read her bio and I noticed that she admitted that she started writing when she was 9 years old. So Joan, it took you 3 years to get your first paid writing job? So that's pretty incredible. It's an incredible feat. I think when I was 12 years old, I was still picking my nose. No, I wasn't picking my nose. I was dreaming of being a writer. Yes, dreaming of being a writer. That's what I was doing. Okay, so Joan, what are you going to do for us tonight?
Well, to get started, I'm going to show you how to find some constellations in the night sky. And these are from my books in the Dot to Dot in the Sky series. They're not Connect the Dots on the Page books. They're Connect the Dots in the Sky books. And to get started, I need you to pretend you're outside on a dark, dark night, far away from streetlights. Maybe the power's out, there's no moon. Look way up. The distant light of hundreds of billions of stars are twinkling in the night sky. Each one is a glowing ball of gas, just like our sun. The stars look like twinkling spots of light in the night sky because they're so far away. On a clear, moonless night, you might see over 2,000 stars from one spot. But there are billions of stars in our Milky Way galaxy, our neighborhood of stars, and there are billions of galaxies in the universe. Long ago, people looked up at the same night sky we see today, and they imagined they could see pictures shaped out of the stars called constellations. And they told stories about gods and goddesses, monsters, creatures, animals, and people, and they told stories about how these characters came to be placed in the sky as stars. Now, to get started to find them, you just need to find one special star. It's called Polaris, the North Star. You might have seen it, you might know where it is, but I'm going to show you a trick on how to find it. What you do is you go outside on a dark, clear night, you face north, give your eyes some time to get used to the dark. If there's any light pollution, try and stand on the side of a building that will block some of that light. And do this, make a fist. So do this right now, make a fist, put your fist straight out in front of you. It can't be high or low or weird, it has to be straight. Now make another fist and put it on top. And we're going to count each fist as 10. We're going to go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then we're going to do a sideways fist, and that's 54. Put your eye along your arm and look into the night sky, and you will see the North Star. And that's because in the Edmonton area, we're about 54 degrees latitude. If you're in a different area, you can just look up on a globe, or you can look in the book, and you will see that there's a different latitude, different number of fists depending where you are. And once you find the North Star, then you can start to connect the dots in the sky to find some of the constellations. So the North Star is part of the Little Dipper. There's two dippers in the sky, the Little Dipper and the Big Dipper, but those are nicknames for constellations that are really the Little Bear and the Big Bear. So I'm going to show you a video that shows you how to find these constellations in the night sky. So you're seeing my dots appearing in the night sky, and I'm going to start to connect the dots. The dippers are kind of like big soup spoons, but the Big Dipper has more stars to it. The Big Dipper has a star you can connect as the head and stars that connect to show the legs, whereas the Little Dipper is just a dipper. So here's the bear forming now, and you can see the line going down. That's the bear's tail. So the bears in the sky have really long tails compared to the bears on Earth. So I'm connecting the legs here. Isn't this magical? I'm doing this with no hands, it seems. Now that arrow is pointing to Polaris, the North Star. And you can see I drew it bigger, but it's not the biggest, brightest star in the sky. It's an important star, but not the brightest. Now I go back to that line, and I'm now drawing Draco the dragon. There's a dragon in the sky right between the Big Bear and the Little Bear. So these are some constellations that you can see in our northern sky. Where we are in the Edmonton area, you're almost looking straight up to see these constellations. So make sure you notice there how long the tails of the two bears are. Now, real bears don't have very long tails, and I'm going to tell you a story about these bears in the sky. The story I'm going to tell you is from Dot to Dot in the Sky, Stories in the Stars, and it's a Greek myth. It starts with Zeus, the king of all the gods. Zeus liked a lady named Callisto who lived in the mountains and liked to hunt. But Zeus had a wife named Hera, and she didn't like Zeus talking to other pretty ladies, so she used her special powers and she turned Callisto into a bear. Well, when Callisto walked through the forest, she looked like a bear, but she thought like a person, so she was afraid of wild animals, and she was also afraid of hunters. One day, her son Arcus was out hunting. He saw the bear and didn't know it was his own mother, so he lifted up his spear to kill the bear. But just in time, Zeus looked down from Mount Olympus. He saw what was happening, and he saved Callisto by turning Arcus into a bear as well. Then he reached down and he grabbed those two bears by the tails. He decided to lift them up into the sky, pull them up and turn them into the stars where they would live forever. It was a great honor, but those bears were heavy. It was really hard to pull them up into the sky, and he pulled so hard on their tails that they stretched. And that's why the bears in the sky have such long tails compared to the bears on Earth. When Hera saw the bears in the sky, she got angry and jealous all over again. She didn't think those bears deserved that honor. And so she did what people on Earth sometimes do. She complained to her friends. Her friends Oceanus and Tethys, who ruled the ocean, felt sorry for Hera, and they agreed to put the bear in a pen so they could never set below the horizon and never go into the sea. That was a punishment for them. And that story actually explains something scientific. It explains why we can see these constellations all year round. Just like our sun is a star that rises in the east and sets in the west, the stars at night are doing the same thing, traveling across the sky. Some of them disappear over the horizon, and if you're at the ocean, it seems like they go into the sea. But these constellations, the bears and the dragon that you saw, they're circumpolar. They're circling the pole star, or it appears to be that way from Earth, and so they don't set below the horizon and go into the sea. So ancient people told stories to explain what they didn't understand about the night sky, and it's lots of fun to look up and know some of these stories. I'll tell you a story about the dragon as well. And this is also a Greek myth. In this story, there was a war going on between great big giants called Titans and the gods of Mount Olympus. Horrible monsters rose out of a fiery volcano to fight against the gods, and one of the monsters picked up a dragon and threw it at Athena, the goddess of arts, crafts, and war. But instead of being afraid, she just reached out, caught that dragon, and she tossed him into the sky. His body became twisted and turned and tied up in knots, and now he sleeps in the northern sky with his head hanging down. So those are some stars you can look for in the night sky and look up and know the stories that people told long ago. While you're outside, you might want to consider taking an engineering challenge. I have a book called Solve This, Wild and Wacky Challenges for the Genius Engineer in You. And this is a book about engineering and the principles of engineering, but it also has a lot of activities. It has challenges that kids can take to try and solve kid-friendly problems using engineering. For example, if you were having a sleepover in normal times and you wanted to stay up all night, but you didn't want your parents to know, you could use engineering to soundproof your room. And I'm going to show you a winter challenge that you might be able to try while you're spending time at home. But first, I'm going to share with you some of the rules of the challenges in this book. So first of all, imagine a dare and double dare rolled into one. Solve This is like a game show challenge. Players must crack tough problems with brand new solutions. Here's how it works. The challenge takers, and yes, that includes you, must follow 5 rules. 1, the problem must be solved within 24 hours. 2, the solution should use everyday materials that are readily available. That means no shopping. 3, ordinary hand tools may be used, but power tools are not allowed. 4, you can work alone or with friends. And 5, the solution must be reached following the steps of engineering. And here they are. Define the problem, brainstorm, pick the best idea. So far, this sounds like writing. 4, design. 5, build. 6, test. 7, revise, like writing again. And 8, share the results, like a book. So I will read you a challenge, and then I'm going to show you a video that shows how I solved this problem. And the challenge is called Cousin Containment. The objective is to build an outdoor play structure. Here's the situation. Your aunts and uncles are coming to visit, and this means an invasion of many little cousins. The only way to stop the tots from tearing through your treasures is to keep them outside. The only problem is you don't have a backyard playground. What super duper fun and original play structure can you build that will keep them entertained for hours? So this book has a lot of challenges in it, but it also has solutions. National Geographic explorers took my challenges, and I report on how they solved some of the problems. I took some of the challenges, and I reported on how I solved some of them as well. But now I'm going to show you a video, and you're going to see how I propose to entertain the tiny tots when you have to stay outside. So what I did was build a bit of an obstacle course with things I have around. So I had some pieces of firewood, I had a couple shovels and a broom and a toboggan and a wagon and lots of snow. So you can see I'm running the course here, and it ends with having to throw snowballs into the bucket. And of course, after you meet your challenge, you do your happy dance, and then you do it again. You want to see if you can beat your time. How fast can you do this? Or maybe you can just speed up your video if you're me. So that's how I solved the Cousin Containment Challenge. And there's all kinds of fun things to do around the house with this book. Great times in the winter or summer.
Well, thank you, Joan. That was great. I love those stories, and I'm really fascinated with the Cousin Containment Challenge. I think I'm going to try that out as soon as it gets light out tomorrow and it warms up a little bit. I don't have cousins to contain. I just like playing games. Okay. All right, so we're going to get to our next presenter now. We're going to... it's weird. I get the feeling that somebody's watching me. No, I know you're watching me, but I get the feeling somebody's really angry with me for some reason. I get this weird kind of negative energy. You know what? It's just probably my imagination. Okay, let's get on to our next presenter. Okay, never mind. Our next presenter, David Paulson, is an author. Well, actually, he's more than an author. He's a broadcaster, a teacher, a football coach, a rodeo cowboy, an actor in film and television. But writing is his true passion ever since he won the Alberta Culture Short Story Competition in 1984. Since then, he has written and published 25 books for middle grade readers, young adults, and even adult fiction. He also has a degree, a master's degree in creative writing from the University of British Columbia. And I think he's got a little story up his sleeve tonight. Isn't that right, David?
Well, Marty and all the folks out there, one of the questions I get asked on the Cenovus tour oftentimes is, what's your favorite book that you have written? Well, one of my favorite books that I have written is this one. It's called The Vampire's Visit. And it's one of my favorites because, first of all, it became part of a series called the Salt and Pepper Chronicles, 6 books in all. It's the first of my books to be translated into a foreign language. That language, by the way, was Swedish. I'm Danish. We've been at war for centuries. I don't get that, but hey, I'll take it. But I got to tell you what the book is not, okay, because that's very important. Even though there's a vampire on the cover, and even though it's called The Vampire's Visit, the book is not horror. I don't write horror, and I don't read horror, because quite frankly, it scares me. And to illustrate that point, I'm going to spend a moment telling you right now a story that, well, it's a little embarrassing. So let's just keep this one to ourselves. Okay, here's the deal. This is the story of the scariest day of my life. Now, I have a rodeo background. So when I say that, people think, oh, it must have been a really bad bull at a rodeo or something. No, no, no. No, it's not that at all. I wasn't kidding before when I said I don't like horror. I don't read Stephen King novels. I don't go to scary movies, except once. And that was because all of my friends were telling me what an amazing movie this was. Oh, David, you have to go see this movie. One of the greatest movies ever made. I said, no, 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 it's horror. I hate that stuff. They said, no, this movie is so great you will hate yourself if you don't go. The movie was called The Exorcist. Now, if you've never been to a scary movie, I don't recommend that one for your first one. But one day, I was in downtown Calgary. I'm walking down the street, and there, right in front of me, is a theater The Exorcist is playing. All of my friends had told me how amazing it was. So that afternoon, I went to see The Exorcist by myself. And I came out of the theater a couple hours later about like that, because that movie had scared the bejabbers out of me. But then my day was about to get a whole lot worse, because then I went home. And when I got home, my wife said to me, our little daughter, Amy, who was about 3 years old at the time, she said, now Amy's not feeling well tonight. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take Amy into our bed. She's going to sleep with me tonight. And you, my wife pointed at me, you are going to sleep in Amy's room tonight. To which I said, by myself? But hey, I'm a man. I can do this. So there I was a few hours later in Amy's room, in Amy's bed, by myself in the dark. But I wasn't sleeping. Oh, no. No, I'm lying there staring up into the darkness, waiting to be possessed. That's when my day got still worse. Because then there was a noise in the room. It's a hissing sound. And it goes like that for about 30 seconds. Felt like 30 minutes to me. The longer it went, the scareder I got. But then, at the end of the hissing sound, there's a different sound. It goes peep. When it goes peep, I go pop. I jump around. I got the lights on. I'm looking around. And I finally figured out, once my heart started beating again, what had happened. My daughter Amy had this stupid beanbag toy that stood about this high off the floor. Now, these things were made out of plastic. They're hollow inside. They're different shapes. They're hollow inside except for one thing. In the very bottom are all these beans. And if you push it over, it's always going to come back up and stand like that. You've probably seen those things, right? You punch it, it's going to end up like this. This one was shaped like a clown, which meant it had the big red nose. Punch it on the big red nose, makes a peep sound. Very cute. Now, I figured out, once my heart started beating again, what had happened. This thing had been leaning against the wall. It started to slide down the wall in the dark. The plastic against the wall is making the hissing sound. The nose hits the floor. Peep! Scariest day of my life. I told my wife the next morning, we shouldn't probably have the children sleep with one of us, even if they're sick. I don't think she bought it, but hey, I've never been to another scary movie since, and I will never go to another scary movie, Marty, not even with you, Marty Chan. I will not do that.
Oh, okay, fine. Then you're off the list for my monster movie marathon on New Year's Eve. Okay? And David, I just want you to know, I have popcorn. I mean, you couldn't eat popcorn anyway because we do it virtually, but I just wanted to let you know I have popcorn. Okay, so there was David Paulson with this story of his bravado, his courage, his chicken-heartedness, whatever you want to call that. Okay, this is bringing us almost to the end of our evening. We've got one more presenter. Before I introduce them, I do want to say once again thank you to Cenovus Energy for their support of this evening and the Wordpower Tour. Hopefully we'll see many more years of your support and encourage and inspire kids to read for many years to come. Also, on a personal note, I do want to thank two people who make all of this possible. Stephanie and Jen at the Young Alberta Book Society. They work behind the scenes doing all the things that nobody gets to see, but makes a huge difference. They coordinate the schedules, they contact the schools, they wrangle artists, and artists are very hard to wrangle, and they do it tirelessly behind the scenes. So my thanks to Stephanie and Jen for all the work that you do. All right, so getting to our final... I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt the flow of things, but I seriously feel like a negative energy in this room. Like somebody's really mad at me. I'm looking at the comments. Seems like everyone's having a good time, but get this sense that there's some anger here. Oh, Snow Unit. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to snub you earlier. I can make it up to you. How about you get to be in the show now? Yeah, you can do anything you want. Anything at all. Go ahead. No, not that. I don't have money in the budget for a Frozen song. Out you go, out you go. Okay. All right. We took care of the Snow Unit. Now let's get to our final performer and wrap up this evening. Bethany Ellis is a storyteller, and I think she knew she was going to be a storyteller when she was working at a summer camp and reading books to kids. She discovered very quickly that the kids weren't interested when she was reading the books, but they got really excited when she put the book down and started telling the kids stories. They couldn't get enough of it, and when she was done telling the stories, they wanted more. And since then, she's been taking her tales around the world, performing in England, Asia, and Africa. She's performed in schools, libraries, fringe festivals, barns, under trees, and I think she's even performed in a graveyard or two. Don't tell David Paulson, okay? All right, Bethany is gonna close out the night. I'll pop back and say one quick goodbye, but ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for our final presenter of the evening, Bethany Ellis.
It's the month of June, and it's COVID. So two sisters, aged 7 and 12, they're home on the farm, homeschooling, online schooling, and the big sister has to help the little one. Help her get online, help her do her homework, and she's got to do her own schoolwork. So when Saturday comes, she runs out the door, past the chicken coop, to hide behind the barn, just to be alone for a bit, and to dream of a time when she can see her friends again, and when she doesn't have to worry about her little sister all day, every day. And then she hears, "I can see you." "Oh, go away." "Yeah, but I can see you. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" "I'm doing something on my own. It's Saturday. I don't have to look after you on Saturday." "Oh, can I do it with you?" "No." "Hey, where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going?" "I am going somewhere where you are not." "Oh, can I come?" "No, you can't come." "Oh, what is wrong with you? You were just so little." You don't understand anything. Yes, I do. I understand lots and lots. You don't even know how much I know. And then the older sister says, all right then, if you know so much, then I'll bet that you know how to find a snowball outside, over there by the spruce trees. Yeah, I know it's summer, but I tell you what, if you can bring me back a snowball, I will spend the whole afternoon with you. Yeah, we'll even play stupid Barbies. Well, all right then, I will. Okay then, go ahead. Ooh, she makes me so mad. She thinks she knows everything just because she's older. Well, I am going to show her. I am going to find a snowball. Where am I going to get a snowball? I really need a snowball. So she trudges over to the 3 spruce trees, and she passes through the spruce trees, and she finds herself in a clearing in a forest of spruce that was not there 5 minutes ago. And in this strange place, she realizes that she is not alone. There's 4 other people there. 2 men and 2 women, all in a circle. And they're dressed like for Halloween or something. But Halloween is not in June. One woman has this long, crazy hair, and it's yellow and red and green and orange. And beside her is an old man, and he's got a thick white beard, and he's got a fur hat and fur mittens and a fur coat, and just looking at him makes you shiver. And beside the old man, sitting on the grass, is a very young man, dressed all in green, and he's got a necklace of daffodils and a crown of crocus. And beside him is the last one. She is a lady wearing a dress with 50 flowers on it, and she is lounging in a lawn chair. And she beams a sunshiny smile and says, "Child, what do you think of summer?" It's a strange question, but she has an answer. Summer is popsicles and summer holidays and camping. Oh, and making forts outside with my big sister. I love summer. And the woman in the crazy hair says, "And what do you think of autumn?" Autumn is back to school, and I'm going to be in an older grade, and I get a new lunch kit. Oh, but this autumn, my big sister, she's going to the big kids' school, and that makes me a little scared. And then the old man says, "But child, when winter is here, you will be so pleased that you have been so brave going to school all by yourself. Winter brings wonders of his own. Do you agree?" Winter is soup and bread in a warm kitchen, and singing in the church and singing in the choir, and winter is making snow forts and snowballs. Oh, mister, I need a snowball. I really need a snowball. And the old man raises one mitten and says, "My turn in the chair." And the woman in the flowery dress rises up, dances to the side, and the old man takes her place. But the chair is no longer a lawn chair. It is now a throne of ice, and you can see the old man's breath, and the grass around his feet is now covered with frost. and he claps his mittens together and begins to grow a snowball. Bigger and bigger until it is the size of a snowman's head. And he pulls off one mitten and gives it to the girl, and she puts it on, and he gives her the snowball, and he says, "Now go quickly. Get it to your sister before it melts." "Thank you." And she runs out of the forest, heading back towards the barn where she last saw her sister. But her sister is not at the barn. Her sister is right here. And she says, "Where have you been? I saw you go past the spruce trees, and then you just disappeared. I thought you'd got hurt. I thought you got lost." "Is that a snowball?" Yes." "Where did you get a snowball?" You said, go find a snowball, so I found a snowball." I was just teasing. "Where did you get a snowball in June?" Well, there was spring, and he had the crocuses, and there was summer, and then there was autumn, and then the old man sat in the chair, and he grew the snowball. I don't understand a word that you just said. That is not important. What is important is that I brought you a snowball. So you and me are going to play together. Let's see. I'm going to give the snowball to the chickens, and you and me, we are going to play Barbies. I know you said you don't know how to play Barbies, but nobody forgets how to play Barbies. We are going to play some Barbies. And over beyond the spruce trees, the four friends have vanished. But they'll be back when another little sister needs them again. Thank you.
All right, one last trick up my sleeve to end the evening off. What holiday season wouldn't be complete without some snow? All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this evening. Stay safe this holiday season, and I look forward to seeing you in 2021. Take care. Have a great night.